a big part of social networks in general, right? Is that there's the social network and it's the experience for the user, but then there's also the business side, which is, you know, traditionally it's been marketing, right? Marketing, advertising, data. What is that going to look like as people move away potentially from traditional social media to gaming? How are businesses going to respond with, you know, in that same regard, if that makes sense? You know, how are they going to use that data? How are they going to reach those people? I'd love to have a short discussion about this.
Well,
Any thought?
Sorry.
Go ahead, Tim.
I'll go back to what we're doing. The key thing is just be able to engage your community closer, better, and provide them with the chance of their voice and nuclear insights. Yeah, that's what you really want. And if you look at Facebook particularly right at the moment, you've got 2 million followers to your game and you want to do a post, well, how many are they going to let you reach? What, 30,000? 15? While they're remonetizing back to you, you can't, you are basically sharecropped by the platform to a certain extent, right? You're controlled by them. And I think what you're seeing is a lot of big brands we're talking to across multiple genres, right, are not happy about what Facebook is doing in that aspect. They're unhappy about the insights coming out. They're starting to wake up that there's got to be some better options. Yeah. Then you come at it from a dev's perspective in gaming, which is the ultimate fast-moving consumer product. Yeah, you're patching constantly. You're patching. You've got to learn. You've got to understand your audience. What are the game mechanics? It's still too much fire and forget. It's still too much not understanding the sentiment of what the players think and want. It's still being largely ignored because people think they know better. Yeah. I'll go back to it. We did FIFA 18 as a test. We were doing 48 hours. That game had major issues. 1,400 comments, 4,000 poll results. Their sales are now 14% year on year. It wasn't rocket science what we did. We just gave a mechanism for the gamers to express their opinions in a smart way. Yeah, and I think that's what I come from the music industry and other industries and back in gaming analytics the last 5 years. And it's you're saying gaming is a total industry. It's not on its own, right? I'm talking to major beauty brands, loads of people, they're in the same position. They're not listening to their consumers. They're not listening to the people who are driving their revenue well enough. Yeah. It's a fail. You know, and I think that is going to be one of the prime business outcomes of next generation social networks. They've got to help brands get better business outcomes rather than just how many click-throughs have they got my ad. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Facebook, everybody, they've, you know, Instagram, you know, and that it's got a stranglehold, really.
Isn't that like brands and marketing? They just got a hang of Facebook and Instagram, how to work that. They don't know gaming, influencers, and moving into this space. It's going to take them a long time to understand that. People working at the agencies or marketing CMOs, too old to understand what we're talking about. So I think that's the biggest hurdle we have to move these people in, or getting the brands to invest in gaming, because they used to buy, you know, TV ads by filling in an Excel sheet and then send it into the station, buy that's done, my work. They don't see the creative thing. They don't actually see there's hard data, but it's also the soft values that they don't see being actually associated and being a part of a game. That's what I feel right now working with brands and agencies, that they still work in the old way, that how they bought TV and how they buy Facebook ads. That's what they know, and that's the biggest hurdle moving forward and making this faster. Is if we want to get money, brands getting money into that, that's going to take a while, I feel, before we can get some kind of also metrics that we all can go behind. Because one of each, when working at eSport at DreamHack, we had one metrics, ESL has another one, Starlight has another one, and how do you compare apples and pears and all that? But when you buy TV ads, you actually have the Nielsen rating or whatever it can be. So that's one of the things also that the gaming industry needs to come back in metrics or something that so you can compare things. That's the big one of the hurdles I see before it takes off.
Absolutely. And I was hoping to acknowledge that before she hopped off, but Michaela had to hop off. So we're glad that she got a chance to be here, and she was saying that she'd love to connect with everybody here on LinkedIn. So really glad that she was here. All right, let's keep it going around this. As far as you know, again, marketing, advertising, you know, how are businesses going to take advantage of this? Would love to hear more.
Well, I believe
Mariella?
that in Fortnite, we already see that there are good examples of advertising different brands that are more related to fashion trends with those teenagers and so on, but still it's a kind of going through with the advertising in this kind of new social network and new place for people to connect. So there are going to be new ways, of course, for us for marketing and advertising, but I'm still not sure what they're going to be. Especially, we haven't seen what Google Stadia is going to provide and how exactly we are going to track the results and everything, and how many games we are going to see live and performing well, because I personally couldn't actually install Fortnite on my phone, and it was a struggle for about a day, and at the end I was like, oh, I'm not gonna do it. I mean, it's just on my PlayStation and that's it. I mean, it's not the cloud experience that we're talking about and expecting. So yeah, maybe we should first see how it's going to be on the development side, and then advertising always finds a way. I mean, of that I'm sure.
I think brand. I think.
Does always find a way. Thanks, Mariella. Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, sorry. I think brands, and there's interesting conversations around this right now. It has to be a part of the game experience. It can't be, I'm gonna slap an ad that's in your face and you're gonna buy. Those days are coming to a close as we see that. Now it depends on the person that sees the ad. You know, I saw, you know, there's data out there like I think whatever that under certain age, when you see the word ad, your brain like shuts off. Like literally, and I know mine does. I saw that statistic. I saw that article. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like whenever I see AD, my brain shuts off and I don't want to see it. Like so I'm 33, and I think as you go younger, it's even worse. Like they sprint the other direction. If they could even smell it's an ad or something, they want nothing to do with it. But I guess maybe different generations kind of look at ads differently, right? But if obviously the younger generation's the future. I mean, I don't think you can argue with that's the future. So brands have to figure out how to be a part of the actual game itself, and not just, oh, well, here's an ad we're going to slap on it, and just because there's eyeballs, we're going to have conversion. It's not going to work. It hasn't worked, and I do think you look at kind of like sponsorship side of things. There's a little bit of wreckage there because again, the analytics are very difficult, right? From kind of environment to environment to kind of have results from that, but also how you've got, I mean, you have to really understand the experience of the game. If you don't even understand what game it is and an agency just slaps it on there, it's not going to be effective because it has to flow with the game flow. I don't know if that makes sense or if I'm making any sense.
Oh, absolutely.
It makes sense. When I started in-game advertising back the first time in the early 2000s, and we started doing it with Tony Hawk and a bunch of the other games, one of the first criteria we actually did was it actually had to be endemic and a brand that you would expect to see if you were involved in skating. We had a ton of brands approach us, especially after the game blew up, and want to participate. And we worked very closely, including actually, believe it or not, Tony and his people, to turn away a lot of money that didn't make sense to be in the games, because one is it would have ruined the game, but it would have ruined the authenticity. So I think, I think there are strategic partnerships, and a game like Fortnite can get away with some stuff that a lot of other games can't because of the setting and the tone and how they're able to pull that stuff off. But I don't think you're going to be able to put, you're in some futuristic space shooter. Putting advertising and brands in that game is much more difficult than something that's based in the real world. Or if it's a cartoon land and it's something that would make sense. Again, I'm going to go back to the old days. I think it was EverQuest 2 or 1 or WoW when they actually did a link to be able to order Pizza Hut while you were playing the game. And it was unbelievably successful. And actually, I remember reading at the time, and again, I don't remember which pizza chain it was. It literally was their most successful promotion to date as far as dollars spent versus return on investment.
And it's great. And then, yeah, so the other thing to add to that is that it's that underpriced attention where people are hyper attentive, because you think about your focus in a game, depending on the setting of the game, but you're hyper focused. And if that, I say the word ad, that's not the right word, but if the branding is immersive and part of the actual environment and part of the experience, you see that it's extremely underpriced. And then you see that response from those playing, exactly like you said.
Absolutely. Now, I obviously, for me, my viewpoint in this really just comes from observation. My kids play mobile games. They play on their iPads, and most of the games they play are free to play, so they have ads in them. And watching them interact with them is very interesting, because the ad comes on, and they turn their brain off. They don't even know, like the ad is nothing. Whatever the content is in the ad, they don't see it, they don't hear it, they don't care. They hit X out of it as soon as they can. Or, my oldest is smart. He just literally exits the game, gets back in, and then keeps playing. The ad's gone. So they don't care. But if they're watching a streamer and there is something in there that's part of the experience, or they're watching, a YouTube channel where they're talking about, toys or something like that, that's when my kids say, Dad, I'd like to have that, or can what do I have to do to get this? Then they become interested, because it's part of the content. But when it's a separate thing, like an ad, they literally shut off. They never have my kids ever showed me an ad and said, Dad, can we do this, or can we get this? Or it's always when it's part of the content. So, kids are one case study, right? And adults are different, but like you said, kids are earlier to adopt than others. And, we've been getting hammered with ads for 30 years. Most of us are done with normal ads. So I think I agree with that. Magnus, you unmuted yourself. Did you want to?
Yeah, I would just, as I said, I think the whole thing with slap your logo and everything. If it's a game, if it's an esport tournament, it doesn't matter if you're used for kids or teenagers or adults. It doesn't work. It needs to be a part of content. It needs to make sense why it's there. It actually needs to enable something for the people that what it does. Just putting in a Volvo commercial in something, or put the Volvo logo on the game, it's not going to help. It needs to have some sense why it's there and be a part of the content. So you're correct, and that's where the people need to find a way for if they want to do commercial, they need to be enabled. They need to be a part of the content, as I said. So it's native. It doesn't feel like it's put there. As soon as you're part of the content, then you can have your logo there. But if you're not part of content, keep away from that. Don't put your logo there.
That's right. Absolutely. Brandon, Florian, you guys want to add to that too?
I would say, go ahead, Florian.
Go, Florian, then Brandon.
I agree. It can be the best thing for a brand if it's integrated. For example, I used to play when I was a child, especially when you're a child, you get branded. I played Midtown Madness, and there was this car, Audi TT, and it was, if you unlock the cars, it was like the last that you could unlock. So I thought it's the best and the fastest car ever, and I'm still branded like this. And after a few years, I found it's just a regular car, but somehow the branding was really effective. And the worst example would be like ads that pop up if you play competitively. I've heard that Amazon ran hyper-casual esports tournament live, and they use regular hyper-casual games, and for one player there was an ad popping up, and he couldn't exit the banner, and then he lost. So that is not really good advertisement for whatever was on this banner. So there is a huge gap between the most effective advertisement I could imagine.
Well, at that time, that may have been a great ad because everybody's going to remember it, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah, but it's super annoying.
Oh man.
And sponsorship, I think that works, because even if it's not an endemic brand, but if you sponsor an esports competition, or if you make an esports team happen, or if you sponsor a prize pool, that's always great because you host and you give in money. It's like giveaways are yeah, that's great. That's not intrusive, I would say.
I like that. I like that. Brandon, go ahead, man.
Yeah, I mean, just like you were saying, my kids, they've watching YouTube videos. They know when the ad starts, just put your finger right by that skip button. As soon as the timer runs out, click it. In games, I mean, we at Bad Panda, we developed a simple mobile game just to check out the mobile development and how to publish on mobile platforms. And we used some ad services to test those out as well. And in our testing, with the testing numbers, you know, a few $100s were generated in a couple of days on advertisements that never led to anything. Like nobody, I know for a fact because we were testing, so nobody was purchasing any of those products, nobody was using any of that stuff. But just because it was on the platform, people were generating money. So there's a problem there because it's a cycle, right? You know, even though it doesn't work, because the developers are making money off of these poor businesses, they're going to keep using the platform and keep, you know, multi-million download games. They're going to keep using these ad platforms, and they're never going to see the data that it isn't working, because all they're seeing is they're getting attention, they're getting traction, and they're using those numbers in other places that are helping them further their business. But it's not actually doing anything. Like it's a fake, it's a false positive. And so, yeah, I don't see the point. I don't see the point in flashing up a thing that covers the whole screen and takes away the game experience. I think it actually leads to uninstalls in a lot of cases. And you can see how it's memed and how the internet communities just hate when developers take that route of a free-to-play game with ads popping up everywhere. And it's going to continue until somebody does something about it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So real quick, I'd like to try and wrap it up. This has been just an awesome discussion. And the last thing I wanted to end on was basically, you know, the benefits and the downsides, but we have been talking about the benefits of gaming as a social platform for an hour and a half. So I think the benefits are out there. We all understand what this, you know, what it is, what it can be, what it's doing, why it's so good. But last thing is just, what are some potential downsides, and how can, you know, again, each of us is a part of this industry in a different way, but how can we, as being part of that gaming industry, how can we fight against some of those downsides so that gaming remains the right social network, a good future, if that makes sense?
I'd like to start with that. I saw the stat earlier. Reinhard was talking about, what about the schoolyard or the office or these physical places that we exist in real life? In my opinion, there's a moral thought there. There's a moral compass that we're kind of ignoring when we think about the all just immersive social platform that gaming could be. Do we think it is positive that people don't interact face to face? Do we think it is positive that people don't get to know each other face to face? I mean, I don't know. I think it is for our businesses, but is it positive for society? Is it positive that kids prefer to sit in front of the PlayStation or in front of the mobile phone or the iPad instead of go outside and get some physical activity and learn how to interact with each other on that smaller scale, which is a couple of buddies from the neighborhood instead of a couple million buddies from Fortnite, you know? I don't know. I don't know if that's a good thing for the society as it has been, but that's evolving. The society's evolving. The positives, I think, outweigh the negatives.
Okay. Good thoughts, Brandon. I like that. Who else wants to tackle that?
I think Brandon had a good point. And this is these conversations are hard. Like your brain just like is on fire because you're thinking of all these different things. But it's, yeah, the morality of it, or like you said, as far as, face-to-face versus virtual, but what is right? What is wrong? What is, I guess, air quote, corruptive? Technology, as we all know, as you go through history, is demonized when something's new. If you think about it, that's the initial thought, because society hasn't adopted it yet. And innovators and early adopters get shunned early on. You just look all the course of history. So it's really interesting. But the point you made was that society is shifting. The whole spectrum of society is shifting too. Now you take the ocean, right? It takes a long time to boil the ocean, kind of deal. But we mentioned it before, as far as how we do business. What are we doing right now? I mean, this is a virtual. I mean, I've gained a lot of knowledge at an hour and a half with you guys, and just getting your all's perspectives. Now I know kind of where everybody sits and their thought process on social media, and we're all over the world. So that's obviously a positive thing. But then again, that point of balance. What is balance? Like what? I don't know. I don't even know that answer. I think balance is a societal idea and concept. And who's to say what's balance and what's not, right? I mean, I'm not trying to be controversial. I'm just, it's all evolving. It's not just the platforms evolving. It's the way we see life in general. I know that's a pretty big statement. But it's just gonna be really interesting. And then that delineation between the physical world, the virtual world, and now you look at business. I mean, look at how much business is being done on Slack and Discord. It's incredible. Now, it's not fully adopted yet, obviously, because sometimes I say Discord and people look at me like I'm crazy. Like I'll do business on Discord. They're like, what is that? I get these weird looks. But it's out of the bag. It's going that way, obviously, with the success that you've seen on those platforms. And it's not going to go in reverse. It's going to keep going. So this is kind of some thoughts that came to mind.
Yeah, especially if you're working with influencers. YouTubers definitely prefer to work with you on Discord. And what you're saying about balance, you never know what's the great balance about each and every person, but certainly nothing without measure is good. So we should find our balance and play games not the whole time, or just not let our kids at least play games the whole time. And maybe the downside about games being the only social network, or the network that will survive in the couple of coming years, is that not all of your contacts will be there. You would go to Facebook to comment something with your mother and father. You would go then to Instagram to do that with other friends from school that are not playing games at all. And at the end, you would have your real friends at the game that you're playing right now, or the social network that will come up from the gaming industry, but it won't be at one place, which is a downside, at least for me. I mean, that's what I think.
And the other thing I was going to mention is like the physical side. It's like if you're not taking care of your health in the physical real world, you're not even going to be around to be in the virtual world. So, I mean, my mind is going to some crazy thoughts and processes here, but honestly, like if you're not taking care of your health, you won't even be healthy enough to interact virtually, because you would no longer exist because you are not taking care of yourself. You're not sleeping. You're not. So obviously, as you mentioned, there is a balance, and kind of finding that's important.
That's why we should have more physical events also. More events like DreamHack or ESL or whatever, Comic Cons or those kind of things. So people actually can meet there sometimes, have those act as temple events where people go to that to actually meet physical, because we can all meet on the internet and all that. It works fine. But we need those kind of physical events where we actually meet one-on-one. I think that's the thing. And one other thing I want to bring into also for this kind of platform is like when kids start talking with each other, the whole thing with bullying, threatening each other, all those kind of things. That's where how do we take care of that? There's no adult in the room that can actually stop a conversation, or when they stop bullying people. That's where we think I need to find that way. There's actually a Swedish radio just released a podcast about the 12-year-old guy who was going on a chat group for computer players to talk about how he's going to kill other people at school. and people start chanting on him and cheering him, and that's crazy. But that's where we need some kind of, I don't want to say parent in the room or some, but some kind that actually can monitor or watch that. That wouldn't happen at school, or that would be somebody saying that. But in this case, there's no adults. Police don't even know that's happening. So there's a lot of things happening on there. So that's where we need to find some kind of balance. And that's where a little bit of the downside that we need to take care of.
And it's that kind of that downside of anonymity, right? I mean, we kind of see that on regular social media anyway, right? People are a lot bolder when they can hide behind the keyboard, right? And in gaming is kind of a, you know, it can be on another level as well, especially since most of your social interaction on gaming on games is not it's not saved anywhere. It happens live, you're right? It happens in the moment, and then it's gone. You know, on traditional social media, if you decide to be very bold, there's kind of a footprint there that lasts, right? And you know, maybe 10 years from now, someone says, "Oh, remember when you tweeted this thing here?" But with gaming, not so much, right? You say it over voice, over Discord, and then it disappears. So
right, it's quasi decentralized, essentially. Yeah, quasi. Yeah.
Justin, I saw you unmute a few times. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, there's a lot to say on this. One is anonymity breeds assholes. We all know that. Two, I agree on the real world events. I mean, you've seen what BlizzCon has done, and a few other folks have done some stuff to go off of all of that. Three, I do think there's, you know, one thing we're not going to go down this rabbit hole. Obviously, there's been a whole series of rabbit holes to all these topics, which is exciting and fun. Let's not forget some of the privacy concerns. And I know that the younger generation seems to have no issue giving up more privacy for more free stuff. But when that privacy now invades your home, and people, you know, are getting a glimpse into your home life and your real life and your daily life, you know, I think it does become a concern, and who's got access to that data and who's tying that data to your medical data, which is all going to be online. I mean, there's a lot of futurism, you know, Terminator rabbit holes, but I do think one of the things that's going to have to be addressed is the anonymity versus privacy versus exploitation.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's going to be a hard thing to balance. So definitely a challenge that needs to be addressed by folks in the space. So Florian, you want to add anything to that?
No.
No.
A lot of benefits and advantages. And I really love that we have this conference now online, as we don't need to travel, and it's the same concept. So I mainly see the advantages.
Absolutely. I think Brandon was kind of mirroring that same thing. As I see the advantages as outweighing the disadvantages. And I mean, I think most of us in here kind of are on the same page, but you know, we should be aware of the disadvantages and see, okay, how can we maybe make it a little better? How can we solve it?
Bring balance back to the force. That's all I can say.
Yes. There we go. These are the only kinds of business meetings where you can say stuff like that and it's like completely relevant and okay. Right? I love it so much. Yeah. Awesome. Well, listen, we're almost at 2 hours. This has been fantastic. I am so grateful for all of you being here. Did anybody else to the panel? Does anybody have any kind of last comments, last words before we kind of head out and go back into the rest of the conference, just, you know, running meetings, that kind of thing?
I just had a real quick thing, just real quick. You know, I can't wait. You know, all of us need to, I think, just in general, we're gonna do a live stream on this, is really come together and battle this whole game. You know, gaming is bad all the time, always. I'm sick and tired of it. I'll be quite frank with you guys. Sorry, I got a little fired up. You know, I'm tired of it. Look, there's balance to everything, but there's also and the word is balance, right? Like, you can't, this whole demonizing. I want to get the message out that gaming itself isn't bad. Like, anything in excess is bad. I agree with that. I think someone mentioned that earlier. But as a community and things like that, I think our voice could be louder in that way, and kind of just I don't know. This may have came out of nowhere, and I apologize. But this kind of ties in with social and voices. And, you know, our voice needs to drown out, you know, gaming's always bad for everyone. Never, ever play again. Like, I think these absolute statements need to be crushed. So
I like that. I agree.
Yeah,
Chris.
well, I appreciate that soapbox, by the way. I was relating the story early in my career, being on a plane next to two people, and they asked me, oh, what do you do for a living? And I told them I worked at Capcom at a game company. And the woman turns to me and is like, oh, when are you going to grow up and get a real job?
yeah.
Oh.
That old one.
My blood's
And-
boiling for you right now.
And you laugh at that now, and I laugh at that now. But I mean, you got to remember that mentality exists, and especially exists. It's sadly enough is because I'm an old man. It exists in people 50 plus way more than we realize.
Yeah, it's a stigma for gamers. That whole thing. There are young kids sitting in the basement eating pizza, drinking energy drinks, and play games, and have no friends.
Well, let's be clear. There, unfortunately, there's a very loud minority who happens to blow stuff up on the internet that is that group, which does not help the rest of us.
No.
Yeah,
That's the fight we have to take.
it is. It is. And that's, you know, in fact, Justin, it might have been you that said this at our roundtable a couple conferences ago, but the truth about, you know, what is a gamer, right, is that the future is female, I think is what you said. And that is that almost 50% of all gamers are women. And so the idea of, yeah, you're overweight, neck beard, eating pizza in his parents' basement being your typical gamer, that's just not true.
Well, I
It's
think
just-
the other thing, I think maybe this is something we should all consider trying to use more often. And it wasn't me who came up with this, so I can't take credit for the idea, but I will take credit for pushing this, is stop
Sure.
calling people gamers, start calling them players.
Okay.
And the reason I say this, and there's been some research on it, but there's a huge generation of people that play games, Candy Crush, you know, Pokemon, whatever you call it. They actually play more than hardcore gamers. But if you ask them if they're a gamer, they say no. But if you ask them if they play games on their phones or other devices, they say yes. So because of the negative stigma around being a gamer, I'm not just saying playing games, because games are, you know, as old as time. I mean, they find, you know, ancient societies that were playing games when they first started. I think we're better off using the term player than gamer if we really want to help address that. And again, you know, I'm happy to have people disagree, and I call myself a gamer still because I am a gamer. But I think when we're referring to the audience, players is a better definition.
I like that, Justin. I appreciate you sharing that. I will give you credit for pushing it.
Yeah, I will quote you. If I ever do that, I'll quote you for sure on this message.
Yes, yeah.
This is Justin's, not mine.
That's right. That's right.
See, I told you, too many soapbox opportunities.
It's perfect. Hey, when else can we do that and have it matter, right? With people who actually, you know, care. So this is good. I love it. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap this thing up. I appreciate all of you. This was actually one of the better ones. It went 2 hours, but it didn't feel like 2 hours. I felt like it was just lots of good content, great responses, great viewpoints from different sides of the industry, different backgrounds. I really appreciate all of you. Florin, Mariella, Chris, Magnus, Justin, Brandon. Tim and Michaela had to leave a little bit earlier, but I'll be sure to thank them as well. But thank you for you know, giving of your time, your expertise, your thoughts. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
If anybody figures out what's next, please let me know.
Yes, so we can all be on the same one, right?
I'll add
Only
you.
thing we know is it's coming.
I'll tell you what. If anybody's figured it out, it might be either, you know, Mark or Ben over at Andreessen Horowitz, but the rest of us will just have to wait and see, I guess. Anyways,
Thanks, everybody. Great chatting.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks
Bye.
so much.
Y'all have a good
Everybody,
one.
Have a great day. Have a great week. See you online.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.